Dear participants, welcome to the plenary session of Conference on Managing Tourism Across Continents. My name is Başak Özyurt, and I am a research assistant at Trakya University in Turkey. It's my pleasure to be the host of this amazing session. The topic of the session is COVID-related research opportunities. Before introducing our moderator, I would like to inform you about Forest Tourism Project. First, I will share my screen to give some, here is the detailed information. Forest Tourism Project is a donation campaign. As you know, in Hatay last year, a lot of trees and a lot of forests were burned, and millions of animals have lost their lives. That's why we launched this project under the slogan of Forest Tourism for a Greener World. We know that it's impossible to bring back the forests who were burned, but we say that it's possible to create new forests. That's why we created this project. We have three ways to support this project. You can support through text message. You can simply write tourism formula and send it to 2026 for those from only Turkey. And here, one SMS costs one SMS costs 20 Turkish lira, including 2 samplings. And we have 2 different ways to support: to make a donation by transferring money to Forest Tourism account, and to make an online donation with your credit card. You can visit tourismormoney.tuader.org to support this project. You can donate sapling to the Forest Tourism on behalf of yourself and your loved ones to be a supporter for a greener Turkey. Thank you for your attention. Now I would like to introduce our moderator. Our moderator is Dr. Muhittin Çavuşoğlu. He's an assistant professor in the School of Hotel and Restaurant Management at the Northern Arizona University. Prior to joining the Northern Arizona University, Dr. Çavuşoğlu served as an M3 Center visiting assistant professor in the College of Hospitality and Tourism Leadership at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee. Hello, Mr. Çavuşoğlu. So thanks for being the moderator of this amazing session. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Başak, for this great introduction. And also I would like to thank for those who initiated this amazing forest project. It is very important and very valuable. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to Plenary Session 3, COVID-related research opportunities. I would like to introduce you our amazing keynote speaker, Steve Hood. Please allow me a couple minutes reading his bio to you guys. Steve is a senior vice president of research for STR. He has been with STR for 25 years and was involved in the original development of the STAR program utilized by nearly 70,000 hotels and almost all hotel companies around the world. Steve is the founding director of the Share Center, which is a STR's program to support hospitality and tourism education with over 1,000 schools involved from 80 different countries. The STR Share Center provides hospitality and tourism data for research and for use in the classroom, as well as related resources, including student certifications, training programs, and student competitions. I personally attended his amazing training sessions. I had this honor and learned a lot from his sessions. I encourage you to attend if you already didn't attend any of his sessions, and you will have a lot of knowledge that you can bring into your classroom. Trust me, you will learn a lot, and this will bring a lot of opportunities for your research as well. Without further ado, I would like to invite Steve for his speech. For your question, please raise your hand throughout the session. I will unmute you, so this way you will be able to ask your question to Steve directly. Steve, stage is yours. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you very much. That's very kind of you, and it's great to be able to join you. I wish it was in person, but I guess we all wish everything was in person right now. So this is as close as we're going to get. Hopefully, though, I'd like to be there in person next year. I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and so it's a great, I have a PowerPoint here. Obviously, we will get that PowerPoint to everyone for you to have. And the topic today, I'm going to really do two things. I'm going to talk about research opportunities, but I'm also going to do a hotel industry update just to sort of set the stage for that. Obviously, we are in an unprecedented time. So important things to mention. Back to the intro. We'll make the PowerPoint available for you, of course, and then the data that I'm showing is available as well. If you're a school or a professor, you have access to this data through that Share Center program that was mentioned, and that's, our goal is to give back to academia. So that data is available, and in some cases, I may be sharing data in a different part of the world than the one that you're interested in. So I can make data, that same data available to you for specific areas. Real quick, just in case you're not familiar with the company, I'm Senior VP at STR. STR is known by most people as the leader in hotel data and hotel research. We have offices all over the world, 20 offices. We get data from about 70,000 hotels. Now, that is their confidential performance metrics, like their occupancy, their average daily rate, and things like that, the number of rooms sold, room revenue, and things like that. Now, the goal of STR is we sell that data back to the hotel companies. We sell it to tourism organizations from UNWTO down to local tourism organizations for cities. We sell it to consulting firms, and we sell it to a lot of different people. The good news is the program I run, the Share Center, makes that data available for free to professors, to academic researchers. And so, as I said, this is our way to give back to academia. We work with most all of the hotel chains in the world, and so they're all involved in this program, and they're all submitting data. So data for research, data for use in the classroom is available to professors and instructors. Good. Now we're going to start with an industry update, and we're going to start at the very top. We're going to sort of look at what's going on in the world, from 2020 into 2021, and then we're going to drill down into some specific areas of the world. But obviously, one of the big stories in COVID was the fact that there were a lot of hotel closures. This shows those hotel closures around the world on a timeline. Starting around March, you can see a lot of closures, especially in Europe and Mideast Africa. Good news is most of them have come back online. Europe especially had a little bit of a second dip there, lockdown 2.0 or 3.0, depending upon what where you might have been. And but even now they're coming back up. These are full year occupancies for 2020 by the regions of the world. And you can see, focus on the dark blue bubbles. You can see that those numbers are, pretty bleak. If you think most of these areas have occupancies in the 70s normally, and look at some of these numbers. I mean, the highest one was China, mainland China at 49. Mideast had 46. Now, we'll drill down into Mideast in a minute. But Australia, Oceania, 45. Look at Europe as a whole, 33%, really significant impact. No surprise, 2020 was, the worst year in history for the hotel industry. This is just, showing you the proof of that from a RevPAR point of view. And of course, that's what the hotel industry uses a lot, the revenue per available room, sort of a combination of occupancy and ADR, showing you a little bit more into the profitability picture. And look at some of these negative numbers. Europe at -60, Mideast at -40, and other areas in the 40s and 50s around the world. Big negative numbers for 2020, no surprise. Now, here's a timeline that shows those different regions by, based on, and this is actually based on daily data. So, there's a very granular, detailed timeline for each of these regions. And you can see from here, China, that's the, dark blue, almost black line, that it hit bottom from and this is occupancy. It hit bottom first in February. Of course, no surprise, it was the first one to go down. It was going down in January, and then actually occupancy for the whole country went below 10%, about 8 or 9 at the middle of February. But notice China has recovered gradually since that time. It hit sort of a peak around August. Did okay in September. October is the golden week, a holiday in China was good. But then you'll notice China sort of plateaued, went down a little bit. And then in January, just like many areas of the world, lockdown 2.0. Now, the good news is China has rebounded. I'll show you an update on that in a minute. But you can see all the other areas. You can see Europe. That's the light blue line. Hit bottom in April. Again, they went to 9% occupancy in April. A little slower to recover. Did recover in July and August. Hit sort of a peak in August and September. A lot of staycations going on in Europe in August and September. And then back into lockdown 2.0 and headed back down November, December, and January sort of went down, but is gradually recovering as well. You see Mideast in there. Mideast has been slower to recover, but a little more consistent. The pink line and other areas of the as well. Again, we can give you this type of data for any area that you want to drill down and focus on. Here's an update. Now, this is just as of last week. So I just wanted to give you an update to show you, places like Europe, hit bottom in January and has been slowly, moving up through February and March. China actually hit bottom in February, and look at the big rebound in the last couple of weeks. And even the US, again, sort of rebounding, US occupancies hitting the last 2 weeks, hitting, records for a year. So, everybody's sort of, good news is everybody's sort of moving up, at least in the right direction. But as you can see, a lot of diversity when it comes to the recovery scenarios. Here's Asia Pac, perfect example of diversity. Look at all the different recovery scenarios in Asia Pac, from China at sort of a high to places like Thailand and Vietnam, those areas. Of course, those areas heavily depend upon international travel, towards the bottom, barely hitting 25% occupancies. Other areas sort of in the middle there. Here's a zoom into quarter one. So that would be January, February, March of 2021. First, we're looking at China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Big impact in China. Good news is we just saw in the last couple of weeks a rebound. Smaller impact in Hong Kong and Taiwan. Japan, big impact there. Another lockdown, another significant lockdown. Of course, everybody's sort of looking at Japan closely as far as the Olympics are concerned. Little less of a downturn in South Korea, but they are both coming back. ASEAN, perfect example of diversity. Look at the ASEAN countries, Southeast Asia, and look at the ranges of different occupancy values. You see Singapore at top, but that's quarantine business, contracts from the government. And so yes, that's high occupancy, but very low ADR. Look at near the bottom, you see places like Vietnam near the bottom, Myanmar and Thailand near the bottom. And, some of those, obviously those places heavily reliant upon tourism. For the Indian Ocean countries, you see, for Pacific and Indian Ocean. First, let's look at Pacific. Australia and New Zealand. Now, those are interesting case studies because international travel is turned off, but domestic travel is what's in right now. And the government has actually taken steps to really promote domestic travel. In Australia, you get citizens get coupons to for domestic travel. Now, what they're doing, of course, is they're leaving the big cities and going to see the smaller cities. There's some smaller cities in Australia that have all-time records. So interesting scenario there. Now look at the Indian Ocean countries. India slowly making its way back up. That's the blue graph. Look at the Maldives. Very interesting scenario here. At the end of the end of the year, heading into the new year, the government that there said, hey, we've had enough. We're turning travel and tourism back on. So they removed the restrictions, flights, they had the flights coming back in, and look at the big peak. Occupancy went up to 80% in the Maldives. And people responded, people from around the world. We have data on where they all came from, and people flocked to the Maldives. Of course, it's easy when you're the only place open. You're the only island destination open in the world. But of course, it attracted attention for a lot of these other similar destinations, Sri Lanka, Seychelles. All these other folks were, all these other destinations were looking at the Maldives, and so interesting things going on around the world. And keep in mind, as you're looking at this, think about the research opportunities that you have here. This is just, and we'll come back to that, but all kinds of possibilities here when you're talking about research in these areas. Let's drill down into Europe. Now, in Europe, as we said before, hotel closures were a big part of COVID, but really in Europe, look at Spain, the purple line there. Spain was less than 20% open. So 80% of the hotels in April and May in Spain were closed. Significant number of closures, big impact there among Europe, of course. Now here's the line graph, showing lockdowns. You can see many of these areas went to 0% occupancy in the worst part of this. Now, some countries were a little higher. You notice, countries like Turkey, a little higher. Countries like the UK, countries like Germany. Be interesting to drill down into that. Anybody who wants to compare various countries and try to figure out why certain countries were less impacted than other countries, that is the kind of thing we do. No surprise, of course, one of the big stories is the impact upon the major gateway cities. Now, this is just at the end of January, and I picked that because January was pretty hard hit. It was probably the worst month. And look at some of the occupancies in these gateway cities, many in the single digits, and most below 20%. But there are exceptions. You'll notice, the cities in Russia, Moscow, St. Petersburg, higher, and you do see some exceptions to that. So interesting again, and market level analysis is definitely a great possibility. I tried to zoom into Eastern Europe here a little bit and pick some places closer to home. Now, this goes back to full year 2020, just to show you what we're looking at among some of these cities for the full year occupancy in 2020, not just January. So the good news is business on the books, and we track two types of performance data. Most popular is the historic performance, what happened in the past. We also track that looking ahead. Now that's reservation data, that's business on the books. And look at some of the reservation data that what that shows you as far as the rest of the year. People are booking. Look at some of the spikes here. The spikes are excuse me, big events taking place in cities throughout Europe. And you'll see a number of these. Look at some of the occupancies. They jump up to 60, 50, 40% occupancy. And that's all reservation data looking ahead. Now, what does that show? That shows people are making reservations. There are events going on in the summer and the fall, and people are somewhat confident that they'll be able to go to these, and they're making reservations looking ahead. So that's good news. Another type of interesting data to work with. Here's an example. Look at this in Glasgow. The UN is having a climate change conference, and notice the occupancy in the city of Glasgow is up to 90%. So almost totally booked in that particular city for an event that's not taking place until November. Good news, business on the books is showing some increases. If we zoom into Mideast and Africa, of course, a lot of diversity in Mideast, and we see some of the major countries here. At the top of this group, you see countries like United Arab Emirates, and you see Qatar. A lot of influence there, government influence there in terms of travel and tourism. But then you see at the bottom, other countries that are significantly negative impacted by this. So one bright spot in the Mideast, of course, is Dubai. And Dubai, they'll be hosting the expo later this year. And you'll notice the occupancy here. We're comparing 2020 occupancy to 2019. You see Dubai is actually coming back and getting very close to prior year records. If we turn real quickly to the United States, this just shows you a slide of RevPAR cycles. Now, these are positive versus negative. The U.S., has had previous downturns. You see the two previous downturns in 2001 and 2009. In between those downturns, you had periods of time where the hotel industry was experiencing positive RevPAR. Remember, that's revenue per available room. The last cycle that we were in was the longest cycle, but we did COVID hit and we did dip. Now you'll notice the dip in 2020 was far worse than any other dip we've had. No surprise, but it is bouncing back, and you'll notice in all these cycles they bounce back very quickly. Another great research idea. If you want to compare what's going on now to what went on in 2009, the Great Recession, or in 2001, definitely possibilities there. Here's weekly data from the last couple of weeks in the U.S. Last 2 weeks in the U.S. were record weeks. They were the highest occupancy since March of 2020. So again, another place coming back into good territory, at least heading back in the right direction. Here's a slide. Now this is a slide where we correlate the rooms sold in the U.S. to TSA counts. Now in the US, TSA counts airline travelers going through airports. So if you're getting on an airline, boom, you're counted. And you'll see that's the light blue portion of the bar. So the light blue portion is the travelers, airline travelers. Now you can see in the last couple of weeks, what do you notice about the light blue bar? Airline travelers are picking up pretty dramatically. The dark blue is the rooms sold. So both of those are heading back, and both of those have set records. The last 2 weeks, largest number of rooms sold in the U.S. since all the way back to beginning of March, and same with the travelers. More people going through airlines and all the way back to March of 2020. So, some hopeful, positive signs. This is another interesting graph. And one of the interesting things that I share on sometimes is all the different ways that we are displaying hotel data now post-COVID compared to before. And this is an example. This graph shows the number of hotels in the different colors are like buckets, okay? The purple bucket, the purple graph, the purple portion of the bar graph are hotels that have occupancies greater than 60%, which you might say that's a little more like normal. Yellow is between 30 to 60 and red is between 0 and 30. So what do you notice? In the last couple of weeks, the number of hotels that had occupancies greater than 60 keep getting bigger and bigger. And we'll talk more about misconceptions. It's even in the midst of 2020, you see that there's always a group of hotels that are above 60% occupancy. So it's definitely a misconception to think that every hotel in 2020 did awful, and that's not the case. I'll reinforce that more in a minute. One of the big stories, and this is everywhere in the world, but one of the big stories is the impact upon group business. And no surprise, we're doing a virtual conference right now. If we all had our preference, we'd be face to face. I'd like to get together with Chihan and give him a hug and drink a beer with him at the bar. Can't do it right now because conferences are canceled or postponed. And you see that right here. You know, the transient demand has dropped to 61%. Group demand, the conferences and the meeting and events have dropped down close to 20%. Now, the types of groups that are happening right now are small groups. They're weddings, they're family reunions. Those kinds of things are still going on. But big meetings, big conferences, you know, they've been canceled. We hope to see more of that coming in the fall, and then getting back to normal in 2022. If we look ahead, this just shows what we're looking at for 2021 in terms of where we're headed. You could see, you know, we honestly didn't think there would be much improvement. This is total world, excluding China, occupancy projections. We didn't expect to see a whole lot in Q1. A little bit of an increase in April, May, and June in Q2, and then gradual increase during the fall. So the recovery is going to take time. This is looking at some cities around the world. The recovery is going to differ by region in the short term. This is showing just demand, room nights sold, recovering. You're going to see some of those are going to they're heading all up in the right direction, but they're not getting back to normal in 2021. It's going to take 2022 and 2023. Here's a US forecast, and I only show that because I want you to remember that when it comes to recovery, you have multiple metrics that have to recover. Demand is simply the room nights sold. So that's going to come back quickly. Now, when people think recovery, notice they're thinking back to 2019 levels. That typically is what they're thinking about when they're thinking about recovery. So going to take a little while to get back to 2019 levels, but there's demand, then there's occupancy, then there's average daily rate and RevPAR. So it's going to take time all over the world. Now, what will be really interesting from a research point of view is comparing recovery scenarios in different areas of the world. You know, how's recovery doing in Europe versus Asia, or this country versus this country, or this city versus this city? Or what about big cities versus little cities? What about resort destinations versus, you get the idea. The opportunities here are limitless, really, and that's part of the goal of today, is to talk about those ideas and get you thinking about those, and then following up.
Steve,
now,
there's a
yes. Go ahead.
There's a great question about the recovery. That's why I wanted to interrupt, and I want to ask you that question because it's timely question. And Eda Hazarhun is asking, what are your thoughts about the recovery of the hotel industry around the world if the COVID situation is resolved in developed countries but not in developing countries? Will this impact the global travel movement?
Yeah, I really think it will. You know, I think, first of all, I think there's a huge amount of pent up demand. One person in our company sort of described it as the ketchup effect. Does that make sense? You're trying to get ketchup out of the bottle, and then finally the restrictions are lifted and the vaccinations, and boom, it explodes. I think there's the potential to see that kind of thing, and maybe we'll start seeing some evidence of that in the fall. I know vaccinations are going out in different areas of the world, and different. There are a lot of different situations. It's going to be tough for developing nations. You know, some of the ones we saw like Vietnam and you know, I think it's going to be much tougher in those types of situations if they can't project the image of safety and you know, really instill confidence among the travelers there, and of course a lot of PR going on, you know, as far as that's a big PR issue, and I know there are a lot of, you know, safety things that are trying to be applied, but yeah, I mean, that'll be a real interesting thing to watch in the future, and again, another perfect opportunity for research to see, how different destinations are turning tourism back on, and what's the impact of that, and how that compares around the world. Great question. Good. Let's take a look at bright spots. Now, this is a sort of a PowerPoint that I created, and a presentation that I created to really address the issue. As I said before, there's the misconception that every hotel around the world has done awful in 2020, and that's not at all the case. The bright spots presentation covers, groups of hotels that actually did better than other groups of hotels. Now, it could be a destination that did well. It could be a positive sign. It could be, green shoots of recovery. But there's the key point to emphasize is there are 46 different bright spots in the storm. Now, I brought that in for two reasons. First of all, the bright spots are all great research potential ideas. And every one of these bright spots, you could do a research article on if you wanted to. Secondly, professors, I know a lot of your students are stressed out. It's like, I picked hospitality and tourism as a career, and now, it doesn't exist anymore. That's not the case. It is not at all the case. What your students may have to do, though, is reinvent themselves. If their goal was to get out and go to a big city and do meetings and events, that's probably not going to be a good idea this year anyway. Now, next year, it may be exploding and it may be great, but they may have to think of something different to get them in the door. And maybe instead of a big luxury hotel, they look at more of a mid-scale hotel or brand, and there are more opportunities there because those economy and mid-scale tend to be outperforming luxury and upscale. That's one of the bright spots. So it may be a different location. Instead of Barcelona, they may want to go to the Algarve, a more of a quieter resort destination rather than Barcelona, which is not doing, as well as the Algarve right now. Lots of examples of that. If you would like this PowerPoint, let me know. It's about 250 slides. You can cut it down if you want to, but you get the idea. We show each one of these bright spots and then, 4 or 5 slides to demonstrate each one. Here's just an example in China. Look at mainland China. This was the occupancy and average daily rate of mainland China. Now look, I show you 6 other resort destinations in China. The best one was Sanya. Sanya is sort of a hot beach destination in China. Sanya numbers in 2020 beat 2019. So here is a destination that in the midst of a pandemic actually beat last year numbers, in the midst of a pandemic. So there are bright spots out there. You could look at Darwin in Australia. You could look at the Maldives. You could, lots of examples of things like that. So a lot of examples in here, and you can go through all of these. Some resort destinations had a good year, but they're different. They're different resort destinations than people are used to. And I joke a lot of times I'll be talking to kids outside of the U.S. and I'll tell them about the kind of the kind of U.S. resort destinations that are doing really well. Everybody's heard of Miami Beach. Did not do well in 2020, but Myrtle Beach did really, really well. It's a different resort destination that you probably have never heard of. Smaller, safer, and much ease, and did well. Orlando, Disney World, everybody's heard that. It did not do well. Gatlinburg is a destination in the Smoky Mountains, and they did awesome in 2020 because it was safer, it was drive to, people could go out. Outdoor tourism was really big in 2020, and I'm sure you saw that in Turkey as well. Getting out, hiking, doing things outdoors, people felt safer. And so lots of different examples there. And I'd be glad to make this available to you. And each one of these are good ideas for research. Another type of data that we track is pipeline data. Now, these are hotels that are under construction. And I show you a few countries in Asia here just to show you there are still a lot of hotels under construction in the pipeline phase everywhere in the world. Now, during COVID, one thing we track is we track abandonments and deferrals. Okay, here's what they mean. An abandonment is when you have a hotel in the pipeline, maybe under construction, and you say, hey, going to change my mind, things aren't good, I'm not going to do this anymore. A deferral is where you simply postpone it and set the open date back a little bit. One of the good news, as far as COVID is concerned, is we're not seeing many abandonments. Most everything is deferrals. And you can see from these maps, look at the hotels that are in the pipeline for China and India. In India, the hotels that are set to open in 2021 will be the largest number in history. Why? Well, these owners and investors realize, hey, it's going to come back and there's a need for it. They justified it when they, started the project, and it's going to come back. So another potential bright spot. So any questions about the bright spots? I'll take a pause here.
There is a question. It is not bright spot, but it's about data. Güney Çetin Gürkan is asking, what are the steps to request data to conduct research from developing countries, considering that we have almost no budget for the data sets? So you are mentioning amazing, research ideas. So this is a great question, I think.
No, that's a good question. And that's a perfect lead into this next section. And let me share a little bit more about the Share Center and how we work. This is sort of a starting page. Share Center stands for that's an abbreviation. It stands for Supporting Hotel-Related Academic Research and Education. Our mission is to provide universities all over the world with large volumes of different types of hotel and tourism data for research, student projects, don't forget that, and for use in the classroom. And we have lots of other resources and ways we help. I'll show you real briefly: student certifications and training programs and competitions. And we do offer free train the trainer sessions. Oh, there's one starting next week. I'll emphasize that again. But anyway, Share Center, we launched it in 2011. We work with over 1,000 schools. It's basically STR's way to give back to academia. So that's sort of how it works. Schools join this program. So there's a membership form. You can start off. The memberships are minimal. They're just a couple $100 a year membership. We start off a school with a complimentary membership for 6 months, because we know when you get started, you don't know, what am I getting here and how do I use it? So we start a school off with a complimentary membership for 6 months. And then after that, there are the membership is just a couple $100. We do have developing nation discounts, and then we also will work with you. If we understand budgets are tight right now, we're doing that all the time and helping schools. If you have a budget issue, just let us know. We just, all we ask is you whoever you talk to for funding, you talk to them and just let us know what they say. But as I said, this is our goal to give back. This is not a profit making situation. The little money we do get, we use to sponsor, conferences like this, and we're more than glad to be able to sponsor this conference and contribute a little bit to this conference. So anyway, that's the Share Center. And I'll give you my email coming up in a minute, and don't hesitate to email me for more information. But this is a list of the different types of hotel and tourism data that we make available. So you can see in here, it's several different types. It's the performance data, like the occupancy and the average daily rate. It's the profit and loss data. Now, that's accounting data. That helps you understand bigger profitability issues. Then there's development data, there's industry statistics data, there's tourism reports, census property attributes, forecasts, lots of different types of data that we make available. So again, this gets into understanding your research goals, the problem you're trying to solve, or the question you're trying to answer, and then you'll be able to talk to somebody and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about, and they'll be able to help you through it and say, hey, here's what you need. We'll send you samples, let you take a look at it, and that's sort of how that works. Here's just examples of some of the data, and you know, the data we provide is not sexy. It's just, you know, it's just raw data. But this one, monthly raw performance data, you can get this for any group of hotels you want to. So you would say, hey, I want to study some luxury island resorts. And you could even pick them out if you wanted to. I want these, you know, groups of this group of 5 hotels, and then we would send you this type of data for that group. This is monthly data, and then you see you're getting occupancy, average daily rate, RevPAR, supply, demand, revenue. And notice you're getting that for every month during the entire time period. Our data will go back to the 90s. So you can look at that data from the 90s forward, and you can see exactly how that group of hotels are performing over time, what happened to them in 2020, how did they recover so far. In addition to the monthly data, we also make daily data available. Same kind of data, same idea, but look at the rows here. The rows here are not months, but the rows are days. Now think of it. If you're trying to do an event impact analysis, you want to analyze, you know, what went on during an Olympics. Think about it. You could get the daily data. You could see, hey, what was the occupancy and the average daily rate on the opening ceremony, the closing ceremony, the lead up to the Olympics, what happened afterwards, all kinds of possible opportunities when it comes to the daily data. You see the power of that and what you could do with it. And again, you get to pick the group of hotels. So you could say, hey, I want to see how the luxury hotels did. And then I want to compare how the the lower end hotels did during the Olympics, and the opportunities here are limitless. Now, that's probably the most popular type of data that we make available, the monthly and the daily data. But just to let you know, other types of data that are available, we do have accounting data for hotels. Now, this is profitability. So instead of just a room revenue, which this would be just room revenue, this shows food and beverage, spa revenue, other types of revenues as well. It also includes the expenses. So you'll notice there's rooms expense, F&B expense, and so on. Profitability numbers at the bottom. And so P&L data for hotels. And again, you can pick any group of hotels you want to. Here it keeps going as well. So if you're into that, definitely, if that's of interest to you, let us know and we'll talk more through that. We'll send you samples of any of these reports. This is the pipeline or development data. Now, that's tracking development activity in an area like a country or a market. You could see, you know, what hotels have opened in the last 5, 10, even more years, what types of hotels have opened. And then the next section here, pipeline project, shows what's in the pipeline, what's under construction for this country, and what's in various planning phases. Those will all open in the future. You get the idea of how somebody could utilize this data. You know, one professor studied development in their country. They looked at the types of hotels that were developing. Were they high end? Were they middle? Were they low end? And what markets were popular? Were they the biggest cities, or were they small cities? Were they resort destinations? And then they projected even into the future. The Census Database is hotel attribute information. We have 250,000 hotels in our Census Database. We can provide attributes like the number of rooms, when the open date, the meeting space, restaurant, spa, all kinds of attribute information, historic, even affiliation changes in the past. Sometimes, especially when we're working with professors on research, we will provide data in the form of a data file like this, and then we'll help you and we'll identify all the fields of data that you obtain with the rows, and so a lot of times we'll provide a data file. When it comes to obtaining data from STR, again, our goal is to provide data to professors and even students for academic research projects and for use in the classroom. As I said before, you can select any group of hotels. So if you want to see what hotels, participate in Ankara, we'll send you a participation list, show you all the hotels that are in our database, and then the ones that actually submit data. You can pick from that list, and then we could provide a report that shows how those hotels are doing. We provide that in Excel. That makes it easy to work with. You can graph the data. You can move it to, maybe a statistical program that you're working with. We do get that data back to you in a relatively quick turnaround time. We try to get it back to you in a couple days, and it is current. It's going to be as of last week. And as we said before, that data is available for anywhere in the world. We do, to provide data, we do want schools to be a member of the Share Center. So schools join, not individual professors. And you do need to just sign that the data you get will be for academic research. You're not going to provide it to someone outside the university. The way we work is as long as we can keep, as long as our customers keep buying data, the hotel companies and the consulting firms, then we can keep making it available to academics for relatively, basically for free. COVID-related research opportunities. I've tried to emphasize that to you as we've gone through. Lots and lots of ideas, lots of opportunities. And part of what I'd like to do in the next couple of minutes is really just to brainstorm on some of those. And we have a lot of people in the group who've, done good research and have used some of our data before. So we really want to talk about some of the possibilities, but I just list some of these ideas on this slide. Last thing I'll finish with, we do provide certification training. Our certification training is related to big data and analytics. Some of you have, Mutin mentioned that already, attending one of these. For professors, everything is totally for free. We do free train the trainer sessions. We have one starting Tuesday of next week. The CHIA is our most popular certification. It was launched in 2012. It's been obtained now by nearly 30,000 people, but it's focused on analytics, and I can send you an outline: analytical foundations, math fundamentals, and then analyzing data. There's an advanced one here called the Kata. I do, in the PowerPoint, I have the outlines of both of these. So if you'd like more information, drop me an email. We have a CHIA train. All of our workshops now are virtual, multiple time zones. So we have a CHIA workshop starting next Tuesday, and you'd be able to jump into that if you wanted to. Let us know if you would like to attend one of these free train and trainership sessions. Here's the CHIA outline. Here's the Kata outline, and that's it for my presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing at this point. Come back and now really, we're wide open for questions and really just for brainstorming on research ideas. And we have been real busy when it comes to research, and professors around the world have been thinking about great ideas. So let's talk a little bit more about that. If you have an idea going on in your mind, we'd love to hear what you're thinking, and if we can help, if we, and I say, if we can't help, we might be able to point you in the right direction. And the other thing we do a lot is, if you have an idea of something what you want to research, we'll at least let you know if there are other people doing that. If you want to talk to them, we joke about being hospitality and tourism research match.com. We can match you up with a professor in another area of the world that might be interested in the very same thing. So if you want, and sometimes people want that, sometimes people don't want that, but let me stop talking and let me go jump into the chat. And Mutin,
yes,
if you have
Steve,
some questions that you see.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, and I first like to thank you for this amazing presentation and amazing research opportunities that you were providing us. So Dr. Jihan is actually asking about the session link for the train the trainers. So he said we can put it the website so people will have access for that. If you can share that, either email or on chat would be great, so we can put it on the website. And there is an amazing question actually here, so which is asked by Seda Karagöz Zeren. She is asking about, do you think COVID-19 free certification or international tourism corridors can be solution in hotels after COVID-19? What are your thoughts on the introduction of the vaccine passport, and what are the implications for underdeveloping countries? Actually, this is the question I wanted to ask. As you know, White House announced that they will not enforce the vaccine passport. So what do you think, how this will impact the countries who is enforcing the vaccine passport and who is not?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I think that'll have a major impact. And I know Asia, I've been trying to track in Asia, they've been coming up with these travel bubbles. So basically, they were opening up travel from Singapore to Hong Kong, that would be okay, so and you're talking about something slightly different. And I think that's going to have a big impact. Now, what we're committed to doing is showing very quickly the impact of that, and we're already seeing that in a lot of areas of the world. Maldives was a perfect example of that at the end of the year. So what we're committed to doing is showing very quickly the impact. We're reporting on data. Think about it, every Tuesday we report on what went on the following week, Sunday through Saturday, in every area of the world. So if a travel bubble comes up, or if one of these other ways to promote travel, is launched, we'll be able to show very close statistics of how that's doing and what kind of impact that's having. We did that like in Australia. Okay, Australia went through a time period where their citizens were locked down; they could not leave their homes, and then finally they were, those restrictions were lifted. And you could see travel went up when they were lifted. There was a fair amount of domestic tourism. People were locked up in their homes for months, and finally they could get out. But then the government instituted the coupon system, which promoted it, and that caused even more of a spike. And so, we can provide you the data to measure that very closely. You could look at different things governments are doing in different areas of the world to see, hey, which things tend to be working better than other things, and that's sort of our goal. But that's, we'd be glad you bring something to me that's impacting a specific area, and we'll share with you the daily data for that specific area, and you can see exactly how that's working.
Yeah,
great question.
That's great. Yeah, we can, maybe there might be a great research on there. Actually, Dr. Jihan is asking a question, but Dr. Jihan, would you like to unmute yourself and ask the question? I believe you can unmute yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Steve, thank you so much, first of all. I mean, you are always very amazing, and what an amazing example STR and yourself and Dwayne, I have to give him credit as well, the bridge between academia and the industry. So I want to acknowledge you publicly here. I always thank you privately, but so that's number one. Number two, of course, thank you for sponsoring MTCon conference. I really appreciate it. That help really goes a long way. The other thing is that, Steve, I already know, and you know this very well, but the data is the new oil, as you know, right? It is just something that we cannot do without. Especially pandemic showed us that data analytics, business intelligence is something that, as you know, like, for example, I will just give an example from University of South Florida. We do not have a data analytics or data intelligence or business analytics course. We have stat, but those are very simple. So my question to you, that knowing what you know, the power of data, do you think that we all educators, and there's 54 of us here, most of them are hospitality educators, do you think we should go back and tell our directors, come on, we have to introduce 2 or 3 different new courses, or 1 at least, to introduce our students how they can use data to make decisions? Or do you think that we should have a new degree that focus on this? Like some schools have hospitality technology specialization. What is your thoughts about that? In other words, like, if you are Dean Pat Morio at University of South Florida tomorrow, what changes would you do to curriculum to reflect the importance of data?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, Shahan. And I think best answered, I would probably do both. I think, every hospitality and tourism student needs to have a basic understanding of data and analytics, because everyone's going to be, going to be in a situation where they need to use it, at least to be able to understand it. From a general manager to a sales manager, everybody's going to need to be able to look at the data and be able to interpret it, understand the terminology, get a basic understanding of the methodologies involved with it. So I think it's going to have, it would be a kind of thing that would need to be applied in every course. I think, certain courses open themselves up for a unit or a section on data analytics. I think, in a hospitality and tourism undergraduate program, there should be, courses that are at least offered to every undergrad that would be analytical in nature. And that could be a capstone class. It could be a strategic management type class where the key is getting hands-on experience working with the data, because, you can see it as much as you can think, but if you aren't using it, then and taking the data out of a data file, putting it into a graph, presenting it, and then getting up and talking about it. And that's really, what we're finding, our goal at the Share Center is to make your students look like rock stars. And we get great testimonials from that, because, they go to an interview, they pop open their laptop and say, hey, here's the project I did last semester at USF. And the interviewer's never seen anything of that quality. And they say, no, don't leave the interview. Let me start introducing you to people, because we want you. And we get those testimonials every week from professors. And so, being able to talk the talk, being able to walk, for your students to be able to walk into a hotel and then have a real meaningful conversation with a new general manager that's their boss and say, hey, yeah, that's a neat, we learned about that in school, and we saw how you could, analyze weekday, weekend, and look for opportunities of improvement. So, but then going back, last thing, sorry, didn't mean to be long-winded, but the last thing is the specialization. I think there is really an open door for people who are specialized in data analysis. And we, a lot of what we hear from our customers, our hotel companies are asking for that. I remember the VP of Strategic Intelligence for Hilton Hotels is a good friend of mine, Jess Pettit, and he said, he's a Cornell alum, and he said, I can't find the students, the employees I need, I can't find even at Cornell, because I need them to have advanced analytic skills. So the average student, if they know Excel really well and how to use Excel to analyze data, they're going to do fine. But that's not what he's looking for. He's looking for people who know Microsoft BI, Tableau, things like that, and they can build dashboards for the senior managers and things like that. So that's even a step into the future where we would have emphasis, specializations within our hospitality school on data analytics, where kids could use those higher level tools to analyze and to visualize the data. Long question for a short, long answer for a short question. Sorry, Jahan, but
it was wonderful. Thank you.
A great question.
It was wonderful. Actually, we are at Northern Arizona. We are requiring students to complete the CHIA certification before graduation. So there are a couple other certifications that I require as part of my class. So I definitely agree on that. So we should, go beyond that certification, and our students know about advanced analytics. There is one last question. I know almost we are over, but there's one short question. Dr. Sedan Doğan is asking, what do you think about the vaccine tourism?
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, I've seen that as a topic, and I haven't really, I haven't seen that really detailed. So if you have more information on that, please send that to me. I'd love to love to learn more about that. If especially if you're seeing that happen in a specific area, because that would be cool. We could drill down to see what kind of, if we can analyze impacts in specific areas. I was talking to a professor in Israel just recently who was, talking about the same kind of thing going on there. So I just jotted down my email there. If you have a question or a research idea, don't hesitate to let me know. If you'd like to get sample reports or that complimentary share center agreement, don't hesitate to let me know. We'd love to share more with you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the amazing session and for the great research ideas. I personally learn always a lot from you, and this session I learned a lot of things. Let's give him a virtual applause by using the reactions. There's a applause. Please join me for his amazing session. So also, I want to take this opportunity and I would like to thank all the organizers and the team member of the MTCon conference for organizing this amazing conference and amazing sessions. And I wanted to thank Başak for hosting us today. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your days.
Next year in Turkey.